5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Full course yellow is deployed. Full course yellow is deployed.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow in Pit Lane's weekly live get-together motorsport chat every Thursday night at about 8:30. Tonight's program is in fact a time-certain program as a result of the fact that that's the fashion nowadays, and also keeping in mind the fact that the first one-day international between Australia and England does start at 9:30, so we'll be out of here pretty quickly. So, what a crazy couple of days in local motorsport. Was just saying, we finished in pit lane on Tuesday night, wandered home, put the program together for Channel 31 last night, went to bed at about 2:30 a.m. and got up the next morning and all hell broke loose. Yes, Toyota. Finally, Toyota are joining the Australian Supercar Championship. For years it's been sort of, it's been the alternative to the Paul Newman races at Bathurst, headline that we had for year after year. It's like, Toyota is coming. It's like, yeah, so's Christmas. But no, they're here. And they're racing a Supra, so we'll be talking about that. As well, of course, as Oscar Piastri, absolute must. We've almost forgotten about Oscar's incredible drive on the streets of Baku for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Did a fabulous job there. Rumours are growing that Daniel Ricciardo, that this weekend at Singapore, could possibly be his final Formula One race. Not sure that I believe that, but it's certainly a rumour that's doing the rounds at the moment. So let's find out what's happening with all of the regulars most of the regulars anyway. We've got Craig Doc Latigo, we've got Richard Outram, we've got Pete Johnson and Mark Jones. G'day everyone, how are we?
Great, thanks Brett. Good evening viewers and listeners.
Hi.
Okay, let's go around the panel first of all. In terms of, as I said, got up in the morning and thought, yes, the show's safely in at Channel 31. My job here has been done, and sort of at 6 a.m. The email had come in from Supercars Australia saying it's official, Toyota has joined the Australian Supercars Championship, along with sort of a link to a press conference and a B-roll, which once again we knew nothing about. It would be handy if this is what hello Supercars. Hi, this is what sort of giving people a bit of a heads up, a bit of an idea that these things are coming, because obviously we would have been able to prepare something in advance had we known to put on air last night on Channel 31. I managed to do a late re-edit, and Channel 31, to their credit, re-uploaded the show again. So if you watched last night's show, you'll have seen that little added 90 seconds or so of stuff from the Toyota launch, where they sort of said that yes, we are joining Supercars, and we will be there with Walkinshaw Andretti United in 2026. So are we excited about it? Let's go around the panel. Doc, are you excited about Supercars Toyota joining Supercars?
2 points. Brett, thank you for asking. And so the first point is absolutely. It's all the people, everyone around the world right now that are saying, I haven't heard a bad thing about it. However, I haven't heard enough of this. Please let them be competitive. They had Nissan, they had Mercedes, they had factory backing at both. They've had other parties that have been interested.
Well, they didn't have factory backing for Mercedes. There was no factory backing for Mercedes. That's official.
Okay, all right.
Volvo, yes.
Volvo, I'm not getting into tin tacks. What it comes down to, please let them be competitive, because what they did to other manufacturers other than the two others that are racing right now, they did not, I'm not saying give them concessions, just let them be competitive right from the start. Don't restrict the engine, let them have full pelt on, or what's the quad cam V8 they're talking about that might be having, and all the other stuff like that.
Turbochargers, give them turbochargers, that's what I say.
Turbochargers, yeah. Intercoolers.
One of the four cars, whether it be the WAU or the other two, whoever gets the bloody blah, 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 please let the 1 to 2 of them be in the top 10 legitimately in the first season they race. You don't want them languishing around 15, 16, bottom of the grid, stuff like that for a whole year and saying, oh, they're only just starting out. They'll find their feet. They'll come good. 3 or 4 years later, they're still in the same spot.
Yeah,
we almost lost Shane Van Gisbergen to the sport back when the Mercedes Volvo Nissan thing came in, and SVG felt like he was going to end up being trapped at a race team that was going to be uncompetitive, and well, it all got a bit messy from there. But yeah,
it's interesting. I'm sure that they will be competitive, and I'm sure they'll make sure that they're competitive. They have to, because really this is the saviour of supercars in a way, because we've already seen, Ford have immediately put out the announcement that they welcomed Toyota and they were looking forward, to competing against them in 2026. Also, the interesting thing was General Motors said that yes, we're very keen to see them on board, and we're looking forward to the fight against them in 2026 with the Camaro. I'm just wondering whether the problem is General Motors. I really can't see what benefit General Motors are getting out of supercars at all. They've got a car that you can't buy. It's not made anymore. Doesn't exist. They only sell. Now they're a very minor player in the local market now, in terms of they're only selling. At this stage, they're only selling SUVs, and the Corvette. They're bringing the Corvette in now. So, and they can't race that, obviously, or at least you'd think that they can't race that. I mean, that could be the next thing round the corner. Could they actually be given permission to run a Gen 3 version of the Corvette, or perhaps even a front engine Corvette, sort of Super GT style? But the thing is, I can't see why in the long term, until we find out what Chevrolet are going to do in NASCAR and what they're going to run, or what, if anything, they're going to replace the Camaro with. I really can't see why they'd go to any expense at all and worry about racing supercars when they've got a perfectly acceptable GT3 car that they can just bring out here and race in the local scene in what's going to be a very a far more high profile local GT championship over the next few years, now that's under the full control of SRO.
Richard, you're across the top. Keep going. Go from left to right.
Well, I was shocked when I saw it, and after discussions we've had with Motor Racing Australia, it was sort of like the plane was on a nosedive, and then suddenly the pilot turns around and says, you can take those parachutes off now, boys. We're all right. Yeah, exactly. I'm watching the news and ignoring it as I usually do, and suddenly Toyota, V8 Supercars announced Toyota. What? Where did that come from? And Brett, why didn't we get a heads up on what was happening in the background?
Well, this is interesting. Paul's saying the press conference was held on the Gold Coast mid last week. Before Sandown, so how the hell did it stay secret? I mean, that was one thing that it did stay secret. Only Speed Cafe mentioned it on Monday, which as I said, I mean, we spoke about it on Tuesday. In fact, before Doc arrived at the office, I was talking to the management at the office, the bar manager,
the facilitators.
The facilitators, and I was just they were asking about sort of Supercar, and I said that that there was the rumour that Speed Cafe were running. I said, but we've heard it all before. However, the fact that it was Speed Cafe, I mean, we know that Speed Cafe is essentially sort of like a promotional unit for supercars. I mean, it is run. Remember, it is run by a public relations company with BAM Media, who set it up. I mean, they own a big slice of it. So
While we're on Speed Cafe, the parent company, we'll just call it NC for now because I don't want to get the legal rights. I don't want to get onto F1 yet, but there's a particular F1 driver that's got a second clause that's been rumored around the last 24 hours. Fox Sports, I won't go into the parent company thing again. Fox Sports are running an article this afternoon about the second clause. I clicked on it this evening. It's been taken down.
The second clause on what? I'm not sure. You're talking in riddles.
Daniel Ricciardo, minimum amount of races, maximum amount of races season, whether he's hit those targets when they can wipe him after Singapore. So there's other sources that have still got their articles up about it, but excuse me, Fox Sports have shut theirs off. They've taken it down, so I reckon they must be either know something or they've been thrown some. We're going to throw the book at them.
Well, it's certainly been there's been heavily rumoured over the past week. Now, apparently the deal has been done for Liam Lawson. Apparently that's the main thing. Apparently Liam Lawson has been told, and he's said himself, that he's been given the go-ahead by Red Bull to say, no, we want you. You will be in Formula One next year. We promised, that was the deal, that if we didn't have something for you by September, then you were free to negotiate with other teams. Well, we have got something for you. Well, they haven't announced what it is yet, but Liam Lawson will be in Formula One next year, apparently. So somewhere along the track, Red Bull have got to get rid of someone. Now, whether it's Sergio or Daniel, they'd be the two. I mean, I don't know whether they've got to keep Yuki, for the rest of the year because of the Honda deal. So if they've got to keep Yuki Tsunoda, then obviously they want to get Liam into the RB team. Then either Daniel moves up and replaces Sergio, or unless he replaces Max.
That's what I was about to say. When we get into Formula One later on, there's the Jos Verstappen handshake deal we could talk about. Mark, do you respect and admire a Supra, or do you drool over him?
Well, I suppose one of the first things that came to mind actually was that the Toyota Supercar, the GR Supracar is going to be significantly more Toyota than the road-going examples because, of course, there's a significant BMW component to the road-going Toyota Supras that will not be in the supercar version of the GR Supra. They'll actually have a Toyota engine instead of the BMW 3-litre turbo that dominates all aspects of production car racing in Australia. So that was the first thing that came to mind. But I'm all for it. I mean, and quite frankly, I think this actually makes a lot of sense for Toyota because they've been building their motorsport profile in Australia for quite a few years. I know we made mention of it last week on Full Course Yellow about how the Toyota 86 One Make Series has just been a gangbuster event for 5+ years now, to the point where we now have a 2-tier championship system. So Toyota have now got their own motorsport ladder built into the Australian motorsport community that could feed their two supercar teams. And they've got prominent. And as far as to making a race-winning Supra right off the bat, I mean, Chaz Mostert's going to be the lead Toyota driver when we get to 2026, and if he hasn't won a championship by then, he's going to be a championship contender for quite some years yet. So,
arguably one of the most versatile drivers across many manufacturers that we have in that in supercars. Full stop, yeah. Because, I mean, he's been, as Brett and I have seen quite regularly lately, we've been watching down at Phillip Island drive the Ferrari. He was a BMW works driver overseas before COVID, before that struck and that contract wasn't renewed. But I think he left on very good terms. And look at all the cars he's driven in the Bathurst 12 Hour.
And owns a couple of McLaren Artura GT4s.
Pete, how was your reaction?
You're muted, Pete.
Well, it's good to see another manufacturer in. Yeah, I don't know. It remains to be seen how things will go, but it's good to see another manufacturing thing in. I think the next team that they want, they've said they want another team in, and I think the next team that they want, I have read Sid that Team 18 is favourable, but before I read that, I knew that Team 18 had Toyota sponsorship. So I think
Forklifts, wasn't it?
Yes. Sorry? Yeah, it's connected to Charlie Schwerkol's forklift operation. Yeah. So, there's...
I think they're going to be the next team that gets Toyotas. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be because, as you say, there is a connection there in terms of sponsorship. So that'll be interesting. But the interesting thing was they said a minimum of 4 cars. So that opens up once they've homologated the car, and as I said, if depending on what General Motors do with the Camaro, I could see a lot of the current Camaro teams putting up their hands and saying, well, if there's not going to be an update to the Camaro, and we're sort of running a car you can't buy, it doesn't exist anymore. I mean, if you're going to run a car that doesn't exist anymore, you might as well rebody them as Monaros or Kingswoods or Commodores or something, because what's the point if you can't, if they're not. If the car doesn't exist and you can't buy it anywhere, even in America, then what's the point of having it? And they've already said, some people have said, well, what about Cadillac? General Motors have already been very firm in the fact that, as far as they're concerned, that for Australia, Cadillac will be an upmarket SUV brand only. They'll be bringing no Cadillac sedans to Australia at this stage. So you'd have to say, what else have they got in their? What else have they got?
Well, they've got to get their second hypercar on the grid next year first. Before they only got the one running at the moment. We'll just let them concentrate on getting 2 of those because it's going quite well.
And they've also, let's not forget. I mean, they've still got whether it happens or not, it's looking less and less likely. But speaking of Walkinshaw, speaking about Andretti, they've got the Formula One interest as well as an engine supplier. They're certainly putting their hands up to do that. So Chevrolet are certainly, and General Motors are certainly committed to motorsport at that level. Speaking of what Mark said before about sort of Toyota, if you have a look, there's no doubt they're probably now the leading motorsport manufacturer in the world right now, because when you look at it, they're in Supercars, they're in NASCAR, they're in NHRA drag racing, they're in the World Rally Championship, they're in the World Endurance Championship, they're
in local motorsport with 86s everywhere.
86s,
and there's lots of 86 series around the world.
Around the world,
everywhere.
Toyota Racing Series in New Zealand is still going strong. So,
have a look at the representation we saw at Sandown a few weeks ago when we were there, Brett and Richard. They really, really got behind their category and had their own awards ceremony and had a gazebo up and tents and presentations, and support was there and people with Toyota apparel on everywhere. So I don't know whether they knew something and they decided to pull out all stops for just Sandown and something was on the cards down the track announcement, but they certainly do dedicate lots of resources when they go to the track.
It'd be interesting to know why they've come into this, because as Tony Cochran said this afternoon, he said he moved heaven and earth to try and get Toyota interested, and they showed absolutely zero interest over the years. He said they did everything and there was no interest. I know somebody personally who was involved in also trying to get them involved, not just in supercars but in other areas of motorsport in Australia, in particular the possibility of expanding the Toyota Racing Series from New Zealand into Australia. And at the time, they just said, no, the company has absolutely zero interest in supercars all the open wheelers. As far as they're concerned, they've got their rally, the Australian Rally Championship involvement, and they just started the Toyota 86 series. That was it. They didn't really need anything else. Thank you very much. But obviously that's been changed. The interesting thing is, a lot of people, and and Tony Cochran was also saying that, is apparently he said, well, Neil Crompton apparently has been one of the major sort of motivations in this. He's a Toyota ambassador, and I've heard from a couple of people now saying that he was a major driving force in pushing this through.
Well, because he also was one of the original organisers of the Toyota 86 series as well, so he's been involved there as well. So,
and he's still involved, I believe.
Yeah, and sort of had an involvement through television coverage with the Australian Rally Championship. So he's obviously become a major player. Once again, I mean, it worries me in terms of the commentary, and that you've got two major sort of supercar executives, if you like, and people involved now who are also the commentators. I mean, it is a bit incestuous, and I think that's been said a few times. It would be nice to sort of have a bit of independent thought, but I don't think independent thought and supercars. I think those two things are mutually exclusive. So,
speaking of independent thoughts, that leads us on to. While we're still on supercars, without leaving it, did anyone else get a text message from Erebus and a lawyer and a letter from the lawyer over the weekend?
Oh, no, now I'm suddenly concerned about my remarks about Shane van Gisbergen.
Yeah.
Jesus, everyone chimed in at once, didn't they? I opened up a can of worms.
Well, it is a can of worms. I mean, it is a danger. Obviously, I mean, as I was saying to Doc before,
please don't disclose what we're talking about.
Well, that's the point. I mean, they're obviously very fond of the non-disclosure agreement, and the problem, as I said to Doc at the moment, non-disclosure agreements are very serious matters. I've signed a few of them over the years for different things, and they are very seriously. They are very serious. You break it.
I've signed a few too, but anyway,
you break an NDA. You can be in very, very serious legal trouble. Now, apparently, the situation at the moment is there's been sort of some legal correspondence going between the winner of the co-driving winner of the Sandown 500, Scott Pye, and Erebus before the Sandown 500 in regard to some comments he made on his podcast, Apex Hunters, along with our mate Elliot Barber, and he received some correspondence from Sven Burkhardt.
He received a text message first on the Thursday, and then he received received an email on the Friday with a 3-page letter in it threatening legal action. So, and he said the comments that he made that has been referred to in the assumed legal action that pending might have been situationally placed, because he said them weeks beforehand, but then he got the information on the Thursday and the Friday, which he said I decided to not focus on because I think the target of the days was to unsettle me and maybe put me off my game a little bit. So on that, look, and I prefer none of yous answer this, but I do have a couple of questions. One of them is, who owns Auto Action magazine? I'd like to know who really does own Auto Action. No if buts or otherwise, no scuttlebutt. And I can tell you that all those rumours that are going around at the moment, as far as I've been told from people, they're not true. So I don't have that in writing, but I will go. I haven't had time and all the rest of it, but I'll talk to Bruce Williams tomorrow or the next day or something. But I'll find out for now whether he can say anything. But I know that Mike Emery and Bruce
there. Whoever else is involved in that, I don't know, but I would be absolutely stunned if the rumours about Betty or Barry or anybody else from Erebus having an input into auto action was true. I think that's
I will state one
really
fact.
unlikely.
I hope this doesn't isn't a what do you call it, a conflict of interest. The lawyer that has been sanctioned by Erebus happens to be a part owner of Tickford too. That is a fact. So
Yeah, Sven has been a sort of not just the owner but also a racer in with
yeah,
Porsche.
I know.
Well, and he's been a guest on the show. I mean,
Well,
he's been in
that's
the
widely
studio.
known.
He's was that?
Yeah. So anyway,
That's
there's
Yeah. But anyway, that's the situation. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. I mean, it's interesting that there are obviously NDAs flowing around. The thing that makes it interesting with Scott Pye is, of course, his partner is the former Shannon is a former not just PR person but
she
in
was
the
director.
management. She was director at Erebus, and now she's with Coca-Cola, who were one of the sponsors who left after all the kerfuffle involving Brody Kostecki, who incidentally did a really good job on the weekend at Sandown as well. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the Sandown 500 or the Sandown 467 or whatever it was.
488, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Pete, I take it you watched it. What was your? Did you find it as desperately as exciting as I did?
Yes. Well, first of all, they used to start it at 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And last year, they blamed the full course yellow on the fact that it went time certain this year. But last year, I remember, ironically, the first car that went out was a Penrite with the wheel when the wheel came off. And after that, there were very few safety cars or full course yellows. And it still went time certain. And this year there were more, and it went time certain. So the idea is to start it earlier.
Just started early. Yeah, and the thing is, I think we mentioned it last week. I don't understand because it wasn't on free to air. If it's on free to air, I understand the desire of a free to air television station like Channel 7 to get that coverage running in as close to their Sunday night news as is humanly possible, because they pick up the news is one of the most popular. The Sunday news is one of the most popular, most watched shows of the week. So they pick up extra ratings from the news, and they also pick up extra ratings for the news from people sort of hanging on a bit, watching the presentations and everything for the racing. But the fact was, it wasn't on free to air television live, so I really don't see why they were so keen. And we know there's a curfew at Sandown. They've obviously had it extended because it certainly used to be 5 o'clock. Then it became 5:30, and now apparently on Sunday it was extended to 5:45. Either way, it was almost pitch black, and it was bloody freezing out there. Whatever crowd was there, half of them had bloody gone home by that time. It was so damn cold, and yeah, I mean they've had to shorten the race. Although having said that, I really don't care about that. You get people absolutely looking. The 500 should be 500, but yeah, 500, 400, no, 502. Who cares? It was a long race. It's not like they ran it for sort of 3 laps and said, "Oh, let's forget about it." It was the long race. You've got to stop it at some stage, and yeah, they couldn't. How long do you keep going? I mean, to say, we're going to run this 500 miles regardless.
Maybe the Supercars has made a donation to the MRC and the local council, because it was announced 2 days ago, or yesterday actually, that the Melbourne Football Club is going to be building a massive new complex in the middle of Caulfield Racecourse. If anyone heard that, so
okay, that's interesting.
That
Yeah,
means
that's
that could mean Sandown needs to stay.
well,
Because,
if they could have done it in the middle of Sandowns, but there's a bit more water there, unfortunately.
Yeah,
But
they'd be good in the
Near the
winter.
lake.
yeah. But yeah, at Caulfield, they're building 2 big ovals, and I think it's $25 million they're going to tip into a complex set. Anyway, that's totally off the subject. Yeah, I agree with you, Curfews, Smurffields. If it goes 10, 15 minutes over and you have to pay a fine sometimes, then I'm sure that they can incur that if it's worth the huge uproar of the finish that everyone can have an opinion on.
Oh, they've been calling Sandown races short of full time since the early 1980s. Like but 82 or 83, the race was only about 330 kilometres, and that was scheduled 330 odd. But they still called it the Sandown 400 back then. But Sandown has had more early distance finishes than any other motor race in Australian history.
Which is why they should start it. Which is why they should start it early, as Pete said. If they'd have started, and it's not as if they had a packed program.
It doesn't affect the race's reputation. I mean, it's always been lauded as a classic, while at the same time, it's always had these short finishes. Like one of the most famous Sandown 500s of all time, 1992, was also a short finish. And yet that's one of the most fondly remembered races for that late race duel between Larry Perkins and Tony Longhurst.
Sporting codes all over the world change their times quite regularly due to weather, due to daylight, due to circumstances beyond their control. And you know what? They get minimal pushback from the public when they put out a very good reason why they're doing it. So, yeah, run it earlier.
Yeah,
well, I don't want it to run earlier. I watch it for the support races. I don't want them to drop. I don't want them to drop the 86s or TCM or something like that.
Now,
or the XLs.
Speaking about support races, another major announcement that came this afternoon, and from the aforementioned auto action, is that Gary and Barry Rogers, ARG, are negotiating and lobbying Supercars to take over and to have the running of TCR and the Trans Am series alongside Supercars next year, because they're worried. And I think quite rightly they're worried about the impact of SRO taking over the. Not basically giving them enough sort of track time on the cards next year. I mean, as I said, as we saw down at Phillip Island for the GT Festival, that it was a very good meeting. They said they really only needed possibly one other category to make it a really good day, and I think that's what they're looking at. It certainly sounds like the idea is going to be that we're going to concentrate on longer races. We're going to concentrate on our categories. We're going to concentrate on, in particular, GT3 and GT4. Whether the production, I'm assuming the production cars might be a part of that as well, but we don't know at this stage. And I don't think at this stage even the SRO know exactly what they're going to do. We do know that it was important that they did actually take over the running of the Speed Series, because it was announced that Motorsport Australia lost $400,000 on running the series last year. So it's.
I think Supercars would be probably a little bit apprehensive about running Trans Am with Supercars because they might be a little bit outdone on crowd appreciation. So I more likely think that they would incorporate the TCRs before the T8s.
The interesting thing is the suggestion that was in the article, and I didn't think it was a bad one actually, is we're losing. There's no Super 3. They're looking for sort of way up. They obviously wouldn't want their drivers. Like right now, we've got people like Tim Slade and James Golding and a few others involved in in Trans Am, and they probably don't want to and wouldn't allow that to happen. But the idea was, well, could you have sort of, to the Trans Am series as being a feeder series, like to replace something like Super 3, which really isn't taken off. There's only a couple of cars. They're going to drop it for next year anyway. So could they use that as sort of like almost an official feeder series to say, okay, your pathway is sort of Toyota 86s and either Trans Am or Carrera Cup, and then into Super 2 and then into Supercars.
Too much of a threat, I think, to run on the same car on the same day. Sorry.
I also think they're too much alike. I mean, it's like, it's once again, it's Mustang versus Camaro. At least you've got the occasional Dodge, although they probably won't have that there. Yeah, but
the look of them are great. They sound great. They race hard. They seem to have a little bit more, So exactly. A bit of bingy bing bang there from Richard. So a bit of hand signals, but yes, I think too much of a threat. Just quietly.
I certainly think though that they're going to be an in-demand support category for some of the more independently run supercars events. Stuff like Winton, for example, that they run their own supercars meetings, and particularly if the rumours are true about circuits coming back to the calendar next year for supercars, there's like expansion back to Queensland Raceway possibly,
well, at the moment, they're really only talking about Queensland as being sort of an additional race, and the Bend. I mean, because the Bend is going to take over. They're contractually obligated to take over the running of the 500. If they're going to run at Sandown at all, now this is going to be interesting because they're talking about the replacement for the Sandown 500, whether probably as a sprint round, to run in November, and probably on the same weekend that has traditionally been run for the VHR Sandown Historic, which Supercars have got a record of. Remember that they took over the May date at Winton from the Austin 7 Car Club from their historics, and they might be interested in doing that. The other thing is I haven't seen. I think that there's a round of the. You might remember, Mark, or someone might remember. Do you remember if the SRO, the proposed calendar we saw, has a round at Sandown?
I would have to look that up.
Yeah, I'm from memory. I can't recall it because I'm just wondering, because obviously there is a. They're limited to 5 races, races a year, which at the moment is basically the 2 state rounds, Sandown 500, the Speed Series, and the historic meeting. Now, if the Speed Series disappears and there's no replacement, the SRO don't go there. If they decide not to go there,
okay, I've got the calendar.
Yep, you got it? Okay.
April at Phillip Island, May Sydney Motorsport Park, August at Queensland Raceway, September at the Bend, and the October-November crossover weekend at Hampton Downs, with a June event to be confirmed.
That's interesting because the state round, traditionally there's always been the June round. I mean, it used to be the 2+4 event at Sandown, because it's always the coldest, most miserable round, and it used to be the bikes and the cars, the 2+4 event, and then it became the state, when the bikes stopped, it became the state round. But if they don't run it, if SRO don't run at Sandown, then that frees up another date at Sandown for something else. Now, whether that's another round of the state series, that'd be that, or and if so that would free up another potential 95 plus decibel meeting for some time at Sandown. Yeah, well, for Trans Am, but they've got to find. This is the problem: is they've got to find someone to run all these things. So if Supercars say no, and if SRO say no, it comes back to that. As I said, the hidden headline in that announcement. which was that Motorsport Australia were looking at major changes and enhancements to state level motorsport. So could you see TCR, Trans Am, S5000, similar sort of categories popping up at various state rounds in the same way as the sports sedans have been doing and Formula Ford have been doing? Because or if they've got nowhere else to run, do they just end up going off to double ASA like Excels and hyper races and under 2 litre sports sedans and all the others who are going across?
Well, yeah, there's a calendar that
Yeah.
like the Mazda RX-8s race on that does a tour around the country. So that's the AASA, isn't it? That
there's two series now. There was that breakaway series from the there was the RX8 Cup, which was Rick Shaw has been running and very successfully, and then there's somebody. I think there was a bit of politics and someone got their nose out of joint, and before you know it, now we've got a second series which is running basically at the AASA. Now the AASA we had on last night's In Pit Lane, and you can also check it out on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. We had Lauren Talbot and Linda Devlin from the under 2 litre sports sedan. Victorian under 2 litre sports sedan championship. They're going to be running at Calder the weekend after this weekend. The meeting I talked about last weekend, which was the drag racing and roll racing on Sunday, has been rescheduled because they just sort of they lost their nerve. It was just too wet and cold on Saturday, and I think they just said, "No, look."
They went by the forecast. It probably wasn't as bad as the forecast.
Wasn't as bad. Yeah, it wasn't as bad as predicted.
They got some backlash, but they still went just in case. Anyway,
so that is happening.
The two guest presenters were better dressed than the bloody usual hosts last night on the show, just quietly. We found that out in a big way when I met them in the thing. I'm wearing a T-shirt and jeans and walk in, and the two ladies are all dressed up to the hilt and went, "Okay, cool, we're out the door for the night." So they were very good, the girls. So
it was I must say it was a great show. We had Miguel, our singer, was fantastic.
He was awesome.
Awesome. And I got to tell you, I mentioned it last week, I mentioned it this week. Be watching next week because in terms of music, we've got Miss Fribby and I love this. I love this today. I'm online, going between sort of like texting between online with Elizabeth from Miss Fribby and the Femme, and she said, "I'll let you know as soon as I get in." She said, "Currently, I'm flying from Paris to Melbourne." And as soon as I get in, I'll let you know. So she's sitting in a plane, sitting down there having a chat to me, like 2,000, however, 200 kilometres, whatever it is about.
See Brett's post. Just quickly, before we won't have time for F1 yet. There's only two real bits of news I want to mention to do with the bikes this week. Is that I won't go into the calendar and what's going on with racing, but. Hungary has got themselves in on the World Superbikes and also on the MotoGP calendar next year. They are Balaton Park of joining it, so that's some great news. A new track, and that'll set the cat amongst the pigeons, so to speak, when they get to race out. It's always fun with new tracks, or whether they do it at night or day or lights, or whatever like that, like F1 and the local scene. And two. Because it relates to the show, that's what reminded me, Brett. Brett did a lovely little write-up, which I was humbled and privileged to read, that he wrote for me. I read it word for word about Lucas Salvadori last night on the show. That was just a tragedy, shame. But I did read a little piece today as well, though, too, as well as Brett wouldn't have had time to fit it in or no, but he had dreams of racing Isle of Man as well, too. So if that didn't, he probably would have survived that and not passed the way he did. So that was fantastic, the stuff we did.
It was, I mean, like for people who haven't read, I mean, you can have a look at the show last night for the story, but it was just a great story. And that the team he was leading the Italian 1000cc championship, and his closest rivals, the team that was closest and would have gone on to win the championship. Pistard Racing, with 2 rounds to go, immediately announced their intention to withdraw from the rest of the series, so to ensure that Luca would be posthumously awarded the Italian championship. So a real bit of class there from that team, and then well done to them. So that was
just quickly onto F1. Who has a handshake deal going with Jos Verstappen at the moment?
Well, I shudder to think there's several lines there, but I'm going to get arrested for them.
I'm looking around the room. Any of you because a certain Mercedes CEO has apparently, this is not just a rumor, they reckon it's thing has a handshake deal that Max will be his lovely son, that great fella called Max, is going to be racing in a Silver Arrow.
Well, let's see if it happens. It might, and that would free up a possible spot for Daniel next year if they can't get anybody else. If they decide they want an experienced driver alongside of at the top level, alongside of probably Sergio, I suppose. Sergio would probably keep the ride, but I believe it. I believe it when I see it.
I think that
I just checked that news before you do, Mark. I will credit Crash for running that story. So
CrashNet,
yeah. Now this is another one. We must say, Christian Mansell, fabulous performance in Baku. It was a big night for the Australians, of course.
Good call, Triple B.
Yeah, let's great performance in his Formula 2. I think it was actually a bit higher. I think he was a 5th in the second race.
He fell down the field a bit.
Yeah. But started on pole.
I think just a bit of lack of experience. He used up his tyres a bit, and in the race that I saw in there, that because of like the transition from the non-turbo car to the turbo car. There's quite a bit of extra horsepower on board the F2 compared to the F3, and it's but certainly it was fantastic to watch while the pace lasted.
Not just Christian, Mark. The whole F2, I watched it 2 weeks ago, and I watched it on the weekend. Yes, there's some carnage at the moment, and it was mainly at the back of the field on the weekend. But it is awesome racing because, as I said to Brett last week before we did the show, last position on the grid lined up and won the Super 2 race 2 weeks ago. And then there was, you saw that too, didn't you, Mark? How great was that? And then on the weekend, absolute mass crashes everywhere, but fantastic racing in that. It's actually more entertaining than the F1 at the moment. If Oscar wasn't racing as well as he does, and Sergio and Carlos weren't providing some entertainment for us.
The F1 race at Baku was brilliant. Oh, I loved it so much.
The F2, you mean?
I love that track.
No, the main race, 3 and then 4 of them going out for the win.
Great performance by Oscar. Just really, I mean, like I said last week, when Doc asked the question, who wins the world championship? I had no hesitation in saying Oscar. I'm totally sure of it now. He is a much better racer than Lando is. He's so focused. He's he's determined. I mean, the team had basically said, no need to go past now. No need, bide your time. And Oscar went, nah, bugger it, I'm going in there.
Did anyone see the Ollie Bearman interview after the race? Did anyone see the Ollie Bearman interview? He was actually very well spoken. He's still nervous, but and there's been the doubters and tire kickers leading up to it. He was very, very good, and the thing was, in the race, the actual team after his first tyre stint had to tell him, Ollie, get out there and bloody have a crack. I know we've got a very tight circuit here, but he did not go hard enough on his first set, and he actually went very good, excellent on his second set because they kicked him in the bloody butt and said, go out there and just bloody go for it, and he did extremely well on his second set. So he could have featured better because I think he got a point as well too on the weekend. So he's the only.
The late race crash saw them promoted into the points. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's been how many years, or he's the first driver to compete legitimately for two teams, even though they're related. Ferrari and Haas have their kind of things. First time to win points legitimately in one season for two teams. So well done to the young fella. I think he's mature above his age.
And can I just say, the way I see things unfolding in the near future, hear me out, and you can all shoot me down in flames. But the way I see things unfolding in the near future with regards to Red Bull is that Liam Lawson will go to RB, and Daniel Ricciardo will go to Red Bull. Yeah.
So who do you think Daniel replaces, Sergio or Max?
Sergio.
It's
complicated. It's complicated by the fact that Sergio did well in Baku.
But he didn't finish.
No, but
and he has at least some. I mean, the two drivers involved, they were steering into each other.
No, I watched the footage. Sergio did not move that wheel.
Drifted.
No, Sergio stayed straight. He held his ground. That's the reason, because Carlos might have been blindsided because they checked the data and they said he didn't change anything from his other lines in previous laps. So Carlos did his usual thing. But Sergio, who was probably past the B pillar if you're normally racing in the current series at home here, he did not move. He actually did not. You could see his steering wheel. He held his line. He kept
the
straight.
argument was that he could have gone right. I think it was.
No, I would have done what Sergio did. I would have stayed bloody straight and crashed.
Exactly, I would have done that because if you turn, you lose pace. So.
Yep, and you turn, you'll get blamed for the crash too. So I reckon I'm good on Sergio, but actually. Good on you, Pete, for sticking to his bloody guns. Good on him.
Yeah, I think Phil's saying it'd be interesting if they tell Sergio he's out and then Max signs.
That's
for
what I said. Who replaces
Max?
Well, maybe the bigger question is what happens to Kimi Antonelli. He's been signed for Mercedes for next year, but well, I don't imagine it's George that's going to get thrown the door.
Oh, I think so.
For Max.
He's not.
I suppose Max might. Max has presumably got the pull to insist upon his choice of teammate.
Yeah.
So he may say, look, you can have me as long as you get rid of George. So,
no, I think he's actually happy with George because he doesn't regard George as a number one driver.
So, well, then I guess maybe Kimi Antonelli's headed to Red Bull. Silly, I think.
If Max goes to another team, I don't think he has the same pull that he does if he stays.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, especially not at Mercedes. You might think of some of the smaller teams he might, but at Mercedes, you think that they'd be in a much stronger position because, I mean, where else would he go if he wants to remain competitive and if he wants to keep winning world championships? It's not like he can say, that's it, I'm leaving Red Bull and I'm going to race for Sauber.
So he's only got where he stayed put or the Silver Arrows.
Yeah, so I think he'll stay. He's obviously not happy. But let's see. I mean, the interesting thing was that we got it down in the bottom in the ticker down the bottom, is that he's agreeing with Adrian Newey, who has said, "Surprise, surprise." The British media are more than just a touch biased.
Really?
Yeah. So
I've never noticed that.
Yeah, and Max is saying, well, actually, now that he said it.
Yeah. No.
David,
Absolutely.
That's
like saying the media in Australia just follows football.
Yes, exactly.
Sky Sport F1 were very quick to defend themselves. It was it should perhaps be noted.
That's just bullshit.
Yes.
It's just like saying Murdoch wants to take over the world.
Yeah, David Crofty was very quick to come. Crofty was very quick to come on board and say, no, we're not.
I just saw a story. I just saw a story of what's happening.
Lofty. Come on, Lofty. Come on. Just see. Jesus, look at the mirror, Crofty. No offense. I love Lofty. I think he's fantastic, but he needs to just take a step back. Please don't jump in the Peter Windsor corner. Please don't. We don't want to see that. We don't want the gloves on there. No, I don't think they're.
It's an interesting problem that McLaren have got now in terms of because they came up with all of the we're going to have team orders now, and Oscar is going to do the right thing, and he'll just move back, and he'll let Lando. Well, Lando was nowhere to be seen, and Oscar's going, "I'll sort this out by myself, boys." I
had a look at the data. I had a look at the footage in normal speed, and I had a look at it in slow speed. And I checked the reactions and all that, and you know what? Poor old Lando actually did get. It was just one of those things that happened. So, but it certainly opened the door for other circumstances to eventuate throughout the weekend. So,
Karen Chandhawk did come up with the very impressive stat that over the last 7 races, if we only had Formula One, if the Formula One World Championship only counted for the last 7 races, then Oscar's the points leader.
In front. Yeah, Oscar's in front. The other interesting stat that came up with I think it was Martin Brundle who came up with, and I mean it's
Martin wasn't there on the weekend, but yeah.
No, but this the previous round that he came up with is that if and it depends on if it happens, but if Daniel somehow stays in Formula One and Liam gets in there, a quarter of the field will be Antipodean drivers.
Yes, that's right.
There is
and I want to know how. I'd like to know if Daniel can fit in a car with all those knives in his back.
On that note, we've gone across it before. Remember, Liam's got that 5-race contract this year, which opens the door for him to start talking a little bit more openly to other teams.
But
and
lastly, they pulled that. They pulled that on the weekend. So they've told him he will be in Formula One next year.
Well, the other thing is too, going by George Russell's reports, they're all stuffed for the year anyway because their tyres aren't going to switch on. So you just see all that.
If Liam Lawson is next year, he's open to explore other offers.
Yeah, but apparently they told him. Yeah. Apparently they told him on the weekend because they said they had to by September they would have to give him the go ahead and say, okay, you can start talking to other teams because we've got nothing for you. Apparently on the weekend, and this came from Liam himself, he said he was told by the team that, no, we are going to exercise the option for you for next year, and you will be in one of our cars next year. So at the moment, it seems that Liam... Looks like Liam is, the patience is going to pay off. He's going to be in there, and the question is just now is who he replaces. I mean, at the moment, I'd say Daniel. If I was doing that, I mean, I think Sergio hasn't set the. Sergio hasn't set the world on fire and all the rest of it, but certainly neither has Daniel. So, and the excuses are starting to get a bit tiresome.
But the Red Bull is a different car from the RB, and if he was setting times equivalent to Max when they did the test, why haven't they put him in earlier?
Well, the rumor
if
going
you can't
around
beat Tsunoda though, then there's no
But the rumour going around in terms of the Sergio thing is that Sergio was basically given through until after the Mexican Grand Prix because for particularly Liberty Media said if Sergio gets shafted before the Mexican Grand Prix, we're going to lose our crowd, or we're going to have riots, or they're even talking about. I mean, McLaren are even talking about some way that if something did happen with Sergio, that actually, if push came to shove, what options do they have of getting Pat O'Ward in there? Because they said, well, we need a Mexican. If Sergio's not there, we need a Mexican driver. Otherwise, we're not going, because otherwise they just won't turn up. They go there to cheer on to cheer on their boy, and if their boy ain't there, apparently they're not going.
Well, if we don't have an Australian driver, I mean, the Australians won't turn up. So we put 4 of them in there.
Yeah, that's it. So, we've got 3. Three of the key ones.
3.5?
Yeah, 3 at the moment.
But
the Red Bull clause that you're talking about has been apparently been wiped as of the September 17th was still actually legit. So it must have been wiped in the last 48 hours, because I'm reading a reputable one here. It says, who has a contract clause where he needs to race at least 5 races a team, or else he can break his contract. So hopefully you're right on that one, Brett, because that reputable source actually does say that it's still, as of 2 days ago, it was still in place.
Well, this came from Liam himself, so whether that's
so
hopefully, but Liam, it was Liam who said, I'm pleased to be saying I'll be staying with Red Bull with one of the teams for next year. So whether that happens or not.
I just caught that Pirelli said that George is talking nonsense as well too.
Getting to Richard's point about Australian drivers and not turning up, to spectators not turning up, that was the case for about 5 or 6 years in Australia, where we had an Australian Grand Prix, but no Australian drivers. And we all still
That's true. Okay, listen, everybody. As I said, time certain race. We're already over. England currently none for one. So let's. So I'm going to take off. I've got some cricket to watch.
Who's broadcast?
England are it's on KO. England are batting.
Channel 7.
No, KO.
Oh, not on free to air.
Foxtel, basically.
not a free to air. Foxtel.
No.
I'm going to bed anyway.
If it's not in Australia, it's pay TV basically for cricket. So, mind you, World Endurance Championship just quickly with the points leaders at the 6 Hours of Fuji winning the race up there. Kevin Astre and his 2 co-drivers with only 38 points left in the championship, or 39 for pole position. They have a 35-point lead over the lead Ferrari. So Matt Campbell's teammates have gotten. Matt Campbell's teammates have gotten one hands on the World Endurance Championship for Porsche.
Did you watch MJ?
Porsche Penske.
Did you watch
halfway through it.
I watched the whole 6 hours.
Unfortunately,
around the house.
Great race,
I watched the whole 6 hours. I won't give away too many secrets, but I'll just say Kobayashi was very unlucky. So make sure you keep watching.
Okay.
Well, I know all the results because I've seen the points go there, and also BMW and Alpine got their first podiums in the World Championship.
There you go. And my finger is on the button to say goodbye, everybody. So we'll see you there. We'll see you next week. See you on In Pit Lane. See you on Full Course Yellow. See you later, everybody.